Well, with all the qualifying events now for the Volvo Masters Amateur well underway, one of the secrets to getting good results on a golf course is being better prepared. Now, as a tournament player, I used to try and practice all kinds of different shots that I knew I might need the following week when I was going in towards a big golf tournament. Preparation comes in loads of different ways. Just having the right amount of golf clubs, having some spare gloves, having a spare towel just in case it gets wet when you're out playing. So prepare for a golf course, prepare for a golf tournament, and you'll be prepared to win.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome along to this edition of The Final Whistle on LairMedia.tv, our weekly look back and look forward, if we feel like it, at what's coming up in sport and what has gone on as well. I'd like to first of all welcome along Derwynne Honan. Welcome, Derwynne, to the show.
Thanks very much. Looking forward to it.
And Derwynne is a golf pro from London, and he's a keen football fan and one of the world's best 3D golf coaches. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, said the man. Anyway, Derwynne, tell me, and good evening, Chris, and good evening, Jimmy.
Yeah. Good evening, guys. Derwynne, can I start off by asking you, does that mean you only charge 3D for a lesson?
Yeah, I wish it was.
So do I, because I'd be over there back. So
No,
Chris.
I think it.
More than me.
Excuse me. I don't pay three-dimensional prices.
Derwynne, he's trying to pretend that he's so young that he can't remember what 3D actually means.
Well, okay, fair enough. But I bet you still have 3D in your pocket, Jimmy.
No, I haven't actually.
But Derwynne, tell us a bit about that. How did you get involved? I mean, you've been involved in golf all your life. I know, because from somebody I know who knows you, she was telling me all about it, you know.
Yeah, I got into golf through caddying at a private club near London, just outside of Wembley. I got into it through caddying. I turned pro when I was 16. Went around the world when I was about 19, playing tournaments and all over the place, and carried on doing that most of my life, really, even to now, playing seniors stuff. And so if I say seniors, it makes me feel really old when I say that. But yeah, I got into that. Then I got into the 3D stuff about 22 years ago through TaylorMade Golf. And it's fantastic 3D, but it's still, even though it's 20 years old, it's still very sort of brand new to the golf world. It's still catching on, really. And
what is it for people who might be looking, who know nothing, from one end of a golf ball to another?
It's kind of, it's basically, it's using the same technology that they use in the films nowadays for Planet of the Apes, and it creates an avatar of the person. So it doesn't matter what size you are, how tall you are, how wide you are, it replicates you as a 3D avatar, and then basically it measures every single movement that your body makes on 360 degrees with every axis you can think of, possibly look at. So it's in-depth analysis. And the company I'm involved with, we've got probably 20 top-end tour players, including the likes of Harrington, who uses that technology, and they use it regularly once a week. And they basically are keeping a check on what they do well in their golf swings. And when they go off that peak, they know where it's gone wrong, and they can get back to the numbers, the data that runs with those avatar movements.
Well, that's very good. And for the usual, I mean, the professionals are one level, obviously, but for the only, like Chris plays golf now. I don't. I gave it up years ago. I'm not against it. Like, I still love watching it. But Chris plays golf. For Chris now, for instance, I know he's probably gone beyond helping, but at this stage, you may be able to improve. What would you be looking at now to plug into that system?
When you get into sort of the club golfer world with 3D, what you're tending to look at is the basic mistakes that club golfers make. They don't make enough shoulder turn. They make a little bit too much hip turn. And once you actually start to create a good baseline of what they do well and a bad baseline, you've suddenly got something that they can go off and practice. The technology that we're actually involved with currently in the past, it's always been camera based, but the technology we're using right now is actually wearable on the golf course. So it's not using cameras anymore. It's using Bluetooth technology through the phone. So you walk around with a suit on that's got 18 sensors, and it's tracking every shot you do, whether it's a bunker shot, a putt, a chip, a drive, whatever it is. And that is the unique part of the new technology side of it. It's gone from cameras creating 3D technology to now Bluetooth, and it is mind-blowing. I mean, we had one of the guys using it during the week of the US PGA. He used it in one of his practice rounds.
Well, that's fantastic. What did you think of, well, we'd be concentrating on our two Irishmen, Harrington and Lowry. They did well in the PGA.
I mean, obviously, we were pulling for Harrington because he uses the technology, he uses our company's stuff. So, but I mean, Lowry's just an amazing golfer, isn't he? I mean, what a talent. And I love the fact that he's been the Open champion for like 2 years.
Yeah,
I think that's great.
Yeah,
I really do. I can imagine getting announced on the tee every event, like for the last 2 years, as being the current Open champion. I think that's fantastic. But wasn't it nice to see those two guys actually enjoying their last round of golf in that PGA Championship?
I thought it was an example of many dour, sour professionals who could interact more with their surroundings and with the people who are playing hard-earned money to go in to see them playing around the golf. I think that Harrington and Lowry gave a perfect example of you can be a serious golfer, but you can have a more rounded approach to these things as professionals, you know?
Yeah, I mean they're out there now. They're not playing for the money anymore. They're playing out there for titles, and the I hate to say it, but it's like the legacy, isn't it? They all talk about whatever sport it is. They're all talking about leaving a legacy, aren't they?
Yeah, and for the final whistle is our program here on learnmedia.tv, and our email for people who'll be looking at this later on this evening will be put up on our usual channels. And Derwynne Honan is our very special guest. Derwynne, it's great to have you. Now, lads, another event happened, and over the weekend. And Chris, I'll come to you in this one first to kick us off. Did you happen to see it? The All English final of the Champions League.
I did, but can I just go back if you don't mind, because I'm interested in what Derwynne said about this, because it's funny how this evening after I finished work, I actually had my young lad out in Dromoland Castle for a lesson, because it was actually a Christmas present that he got, and and I have to say, you're talking about new technology, and I just thought, for a 16-year-old who hasn't had too many lessons, but I just got the opportunity to have one. There's a new assistant pro out there called Sinead Sexton, and she some of the things that she did in 40 minutes was just, for a young lad to show him how to hit a ball and just to give him an idea of what he was doing. It was actually eye-opening, because I hadn't seen that being done to be honest with you, by our own club, and where he's struggling he seems to be the overemphasis wasn't him drawing a ball. Where kids get into their mind, they must do this, and so when trying to say, look, there's more than one way you can skin a cat, and all she did was, Derwynne, was basically just change the way he gripped the club minimally, and within about 4 or 5 shots, he was able to get more loft, more direction. He wasn't drawing the ball as much as he was supposed to be doing, and he was actually fading the ball, which he couldn't do before. So I'm not trying to dismiss the technology, don't get me wrong, but it just shows that between the naked eye of a professional looking at just maybe having a look at the stance and the swing and the grip, and your technology, that it can go hand in glove.
Yeah, I mean, the technology, what it does really, doesn't change the way you want to teach as a golf instructor.
Yeah.
What it actually does, it enhances what you can do as a golf instructor. You can go as deep as you want to. I mean, we can give you 90,000 metrics to do with one golf swing, which is stupid. It's like mind-blowing. Who wants to know that? Any good coach,
Rory McIlroy might want to know it, would he?
Yeah, Bryson DeChambeau probably would. but you're basically only looking at sort of one or two. I don't want to say the word tips, but one or two things to work on during a golf lesson. And that side of it becomes very visual. But the one thing about it, once you join a good coach with good technology, whether that's a launch monitor or whether it was 3D stuff, it just enhances what they can do. And I think that becomes, golf at the end of the day is a very visual thing. As golf pros, we're trained through the PGA to watch ball flight, relate ball flight back to what the club face is doing. Club face will relate back to what the path was doing, all these different things. So we still coach in a very visual way. The only difference is that you're using technology to use it. And that then starts I call it fine tuning. Yeah. We've done work with the likes of Butch Harmon and different things like that. And so I'm got to think about this now. So I've been a golf pro 41 years. So I stand here and I go, right, up until 21 years ago, I couldn't tell you if all I could say to you was that looked like a full turn in your shoulders. Yeah. In your backswing. If you'd thrown back and said, is there a number that goes with that? We would have all gone straight to what Ben Hogan would have been teaching in the 50s and 40s, saying 90-degree shoulder turn and 45 with your hips. When you start going, well, actually, I can measure that. Now, I remember standing next to Butch Harmon where he's literally asked me how much of a shoulder turn was that, because it looked full to me. And I said, well, when you say full, what do you think that is, Butch? And he went, 90, 91. And the guy actually turned and it was 112 degrees of shoulder turn. And he looked at me and just went, wow. So I'm miles off. And I was like, are you miles off? Not really. You're 10 degrees off, shall we say? Yeah. That's not miles, is it? But to me, that's where the fine tuning starts to come back into the golf part, as in, when you put that with good golfers or whether you put that with brand new golfers, they've now got something, and it's a silly sort of cliche to use, but they've got something they can hang their coat on. They've suddenly got a trigger to go back to. When you hit good shots, you were at 100 degrees of shoulder turn.
Sorry.
No, carry on.
On this program last week, one of the things that we spoke about was maybe one of the things, certainly something I spoke about, was the almost robotic swing you see in an awful lot of young golfers, an awful lot of good young pros. And it's interesting that you mentioned DeChambeau, because he decided he wasn't going to do it the way he'd been coached for the last 30 years. I'm hearing what you're saying as being a way that somebody can have his own type of swing and his own style and still be able to do it as well as possible without being a robot. Would I be right in interpreting your coaching strategy using that 3D?
You're back again.
I'm back. So I live in just outside of Windsor, so the Windsor Great Park. And if the Queen goes on Netflix or on Amazon, I lose my connection every so often. So I'm going to blame her, okay?
Don't to the Secret Service be at your doorstep.
Oh, no, that'll be a knock on the door in a minute.
And I live right next door to Brian May, so Queen affect my broadcast capability as well.
Oh dear.
We've got so much in common.
No, yeah.
The point Jimmy was making about the likes of Bryson DeChambeau doing his own thing, he's a big, strong lad as well, and he belts the ball a long ways.
Well, I'm quite pally with the Cobra rep, who is actually his equipment agent, and I get regular feedback and conversations with him. Now, I played full time for a long time, and some of the distances that guy hits a golf ball, I cannot relate to. I mean, I have no idea. Now, I know that he's hit a golf ball through the air 400 yards in practice.
I believe it.
Now, I can't picture myself ever having the ability to do that. unless you give me a rocket or something. I just can't picture how you can hit a golf ball 400 yards.
But Derwynne, do you not think? And I just think what Bryson has done over the last year and a half by bulking up his physique while everyone was on lockdown, and by increasing his swing and his ball speed, that it's actually what he's done is that he's actually messed about with people's minds. If you take McIlroy as an example, where McIlroy says, well, if you can't beat him, join him. And that's messed up his golf game, and he's admitted that now, where basically and this is why he's going back to more the coaching that he kind of discarded for a while, where he has now looked at what he was trying to do in trying to join the likes of DeChambeau and Koepka, and now going, oh, that power has taken away my finesse.
Yeah.
And now he's going back to like the Pete Cowan to try and go, you know what, I need to get back to basics and do what I should have been doing. That's when I won the 4 majors.
The thing that fascinates me about McIlroy, if you look at the tour averages from last year, he was 3 yards behind DeChambeau on as the stats. And you sit there and kind of go, well, what are you chasing? I mean, is it just ego that wants to be number one on the driving distance, or what is it? I don't understand that. But I find a lot of modern golf now that they are kind of surrounded by all these different gurus, fitness gurus and mental gurus and golf gurus and all the rest of it. And it's as though no one actually wants to bring them back to reality and go, you're 3 yards behind.
Yeah.
And
it's that big a deal.
It doesn't, I mean, to me, it doesn't make much sense, because it's like 3 yards is one big, step. That's all it is, really, or 2 steps, all right? I mean, it's not going to be the distance that's going to win you or lose you majors. And I just get the feeling by what he's doing is that it's got into his head by thinking he's doing this and has become successful. I'm not winning his major tournaments, and I need to do this? And I just get the feeling that, and maybe as a golf player, I mean, I'm not a golf pro by a long stretch of imagination, but my feeling on McIlroy is that it's not his driving that's the problem, it's his wedge play in.
I think it's his head, because I can remember when, not so long ago,
I'd say he's probably lost an enormous amount of confidence.
I think as well with DeChambeau, when he was bulking up and changing his swing, and he even changed to that god-awful putting stance that he has, everybody was talking about him, but they were all talking about him, as Chris says, along the lines of, Jesus, what has he done to be that much longer than us? And I remember playing with a very good golfer in Shannon, Louis Halpin Jr., and he was saying he was just off scratch. He was saying that he loved being just behind a lower handicap golfer on the fairway, because he knew that he could stick an iron from behind that player a damn sight closer than he could, and he was putting him under pressure. And I think Chris is right. What McIlroy should be doing is focusing on, okay, Bryson, you're 10 yards in front of me, but bang, try to get inside that now, and we'll see how good your muscles are going to do. And that was what I was trying to get to. The game is not about oomph. It's not about you're knackered on a course like Shannon if you can only fade the ball because it's a drawer's course. You've got to be able to play all the shots well. And I can remember reading about something Jack Nicklaus said many, many years ago. A successful golfer doesn't ever play all his shots 100% right, but he does get 90% of his shots 90% right. And DeChambeau is going for a 100% drive ratio. And I think what will happen to him is when his driving starts cocking up, he's going to collapse.
It could do, Jimmy, and that's the problem about what I'm thinking about what McIlroy is doing, and this is why DeChambeau at the moment is the leader, because of the psychological aspect of the game, where he's
They're
messing
all trying
around
to
with
get
other
you.
people's heads.
Yeah.
And as I said, this is not just me saying it. A lot of people said that it's the and Derwyn would probably appreciate what I'm saying as a golfing tutor, right? It's the old saying is it's within 100 yards. That's where you take most of your strokes. The fact that McIlroy's wedge play from 100 to 130 yards out is not of a standard that a top professional should be, and we're talking about the best of the world here. So when you remember what Koepka was doing when he won 4 majors in a very short space of time, he was dialing in like a zip code. He was basically putting the ball within 15 feet, giving him birdie chances. So what McIlroy was doing with his wedge shot was because he was focusing so much on the drive, his wedge shots were poor because they were like maybe instead of being 15, 20 feet out, they were 40, 45 feet out. Now, McIlroy was then putting, and then by not getting close in his first putt, he was putting unbelievable pressure on his second putt, which then he's missing a lot of second putts. Then he's bogeying and double bogeying more than he should be. And that's the problem. I feel is his problem is that if he focuses on his short game from 120 yards in, then because you can see it sometimes when he's got you take like a par 4 that's like 340, say 360, 370 yards. He's bombing the ball down 300 yards on average, right? He's probably hitting more than that, but say at 300 yards. He's leaving himself a 60 to 70 yards wedge shot in. And you can tell that McIlroy is not comfortable with a half, 3/4 swing. And that's where the mistakes I see coming, because he is not chipping in because he would prefer to have a full swing than a half to 3/4 swing. And that's where he's not getting close to the hole.
I think there's another point there before Derwynne answers. I think there's another point to bear in mind: motivation. When you have so much money in the bank, a couple of $100 million, that you'll never get to spend in your lifetime, it doesn't come down to money anymore. Then it comes down to your personal, I suppose, your personality, your enthusiasm for the game, and your deep interest in the game. People like you met Derwynne, you met Severiano Ballesteros, didn't you? Did you play with him?
Yeah, I played a lot of golf with Sevi back in the day.
Yeah, and those characters like Ballesteros.
I mean, Sevi was.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I mean, he was special. I mean, he could walk in a room and you could feel that someone had just walked in the room. You know, he was special. I mean, he was just. You could do things with a golf ball that I couldn't see other people doing, and you'd ask him questions. You know, it's sort of in my early 20s, and you'd ask him questions about how did you play that, and he didn't really know. He just, well, I did this, and you're like, well, what's this? What does that mean? And he didn't really know. He just did it. You know, it was. I don't want to say Nike's phrase, but just do it. But it was just do it. I mean, he had some kind of I always remember that Ryder Cup in America where he played Lehman, where he was out number 1.
Yes.
And Lehman and him turned after 9 holes in level. And I think Sevi hadn't hit a green. Lehman had knocked the flags out.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Sevi was a shot maker. There was no other way. I mean, Derwynne is 100% right, you know?
Yeah.
One thing I'd say 2 things. One about McIlroy, and I do think his problem is in his head. But McIlroy won an awful lot of Irish Opens, which are all played. Certainly 3 of them are played on links courses, and you've got to have a short game on a links course, and you have to be able to master not taking the driver off the tee, because you want to be able to play the right shot into the green. That's the way links golf works, and he was very good at that. And I don't see how in God's name he's managed to stop being good with those wedges. I think what Chris says is true. He's forgotten how to give him how to leave himself with a 56-degree lob wedge shot into the pin because he's just so focused on lashing it. He's losing control of of course management. He doesn't have course management anymore. But what you were saying about Seve there, I remember one of the first exhibitions of golf I ever got. I don't know whether you ever heard of this guy, but it was a guy called Christy O'Connor Jr., who was a pro in Shannon
Yeah.
a long, long time ago. But Christy gave a demonstration, and it was on the first hole. Christie stood up on the on the tee box, and he sits there and hits 10 balls out into the fairway, and they all landed within 3 or 4 yards. And he said, "No," he said, "what did I do there?" And nobody knew. He'd hit 3 iron, 4 iron, 5 iron, 6 iron, 7 iron, 9 iron, and pitch and wedge, and put the ball into the same spot with every single one of them. And he said, if you can become a shot maker like that, you'll become a very good golfer. And that's critical. I mean, he knew how to shank down on a 3 iron, and he knew how to lash a pitch and wedge and get the ball into the same place. And I don't think there's a pro out there now, with the possible exception of McIlroy, or sorry, Harrington, and maybe Lowry, who know how to create shots. Speed maybe as well, but certainly DeChambeau doesn't.
But that's great. Before we get off of this topic, Derwynne, I think there's one great shot maker still around, and he won the PGA recently. I think he is capable of making those type of shots when it's required, as Mickelson. He still has it.
Yeah.
And
Mickelson would be.
And he's 50. You know, he's 50. He's been a shot maker all his life.
Yes.
Always had a brilliant short game, which rescued him a lot of the time as well. But he's 50. He's used to doing this. You know, I think it's a dying art. Once Harrington is gone and Lefty is gone, I think you're going to find very, very few people being able to play the game like that.
Yeah, it's all just one-dimensional now. It's just smashed it off the tee and hold as many putts as you can. You know, I mean, golf tournaments are won with the putter. They're not won with drivers. They're won with putters. You know, the guy who makes the least amount of bogeys wins a golf tournament generally. It's not even about the birdies, to be honest.
I know,
but,
so
as we were all taught, certainly what I was taught, in my first couple of days playing golf, the pro turned around and said, and everybody out in the course said, you drive for show and you putt for dough.
Yeah, and definitely.
They've all seemed to have lost that.
Before we leave golf, just all of us here who are interested in still playing golf, and we might make it one day, no matter what age you are. Mr. Kokrak, he won his second tournament after 233 starts. You know, he played 233 times on the circuit without winning, so he's won his second weekend. He beat Jordan Spieth, went into the water at the 18th hole, and that was the end of him. Allowed Kokrak to win, which is nice to see.
Well, you've only got to go back a couple of weeks, and Richard Bland, he was 480 odd, wasn't he, or something like that? And he won his first tournament on the European Tour. I mean, you know, you got to stick with it. I mean, fair play for sticking with it, but it's good to see.
Wasn't there a guy from China who won on the PGA Tour a few weeks back as well?
Derwynne, do you mind? Can I ask you a question about, you know, you play golf, right, at a good level. What's your feelings on the slow play? I mean, I can understand that there's a lot of money involved, but when you saw the last round of the USPGA took 4 hours and 45 minutes to complete. I mean, my feeling is that, and it happened a good few years ago, where a Chinese 14-year-old was penalized by one stroke by a European Tour official at the US Masters, where I don't think he would have done that to any of the senior professionals at the time.
No.
I just feel that it's financially penalizing players for slow play or putting them on the clock without doing anything is not going to enhance the speed of play. Do you think it's going to come to a time where penalties like strokes are going to have to be enforced?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it needs to be shots. I mean, it's getting slower and slower. And then you've got, there's a massive problem with slow play. And even when you take it down to club level, you see kids out there now with yardage range finders, lasers, and they've got green maps. I don't know if you guys have ever seen any of these green maps that they create now. I mean, I love the fact the Masters ban that. You can't have one. But I've seen one from a tour player I coach currently, and I'm looking at it, and I've played full time, and I'm standing there looking at going, I don't know how the hell you work that out. I mean, what's that all about? That just looks like some 4-year-old's gone bonkers with his crayons and put arrows everywhere. I was totally like, well, I don't understand about that. What's happened to your eye? Can't you? And the feel, you've got your feet on the green. You know where a slope is, and you can see it, and you feel it. I mean, everybody putts. Green maps are great. I wouldn't personally want one because the green map isn't taking into account how you putt. Do you hit the putt quite hard, or do you lag the ball? Do you lag it in? Most guys putting out on tour generally they're falling into the hole rather than running into the hole. And,
right.
that's those green books don't take any of that into account. So you've still got a massive amount of brain matter going into working out what the map is saying and also what the pace is saying. And, when you've got the US, PGA going, you can use rangefinders. I mean, it's like, how many more things? We're going to have wind testers out there soon.
Yeah. I just get the feeling, though. I mean, my wife bought me one of those rangefinders, and I don't even. My young lad has it because when we have this kind of competition, I just say to my young lad, I says, Connor, tell me what the yardage is, and before he gets out, I says, I'll tell him. I says, it's about 170, isn't it? And he looks at it and goes, about 169. I'll take that. So I'm actually playing with him because I'm there on the same course week in, week out, so I should know the yardage.
Exactly,
I should know the distance within maybe 3 or 4 yards, depending on where they put the pin. So I don't really need to be looking at a rangefinder because I know it's like I know the length of my garden, I know the width, the height of my house. So I don't need a bloody rangefinder to tell someone that. So I should know where on my course which is what. And I just get, while I understand that they're playing different courses week in, week out, I just get the feeling that there was a big play on this about 2 or 3 years ago to enhance the pace of play and to speed it up. Yeah, it's all gone out the window.
Yeah, it has. Yeah.
The point really with the green maps, my understanding of the green maps is when a player, we're back to the approach shot with the pitching wedge again. When a player is playing the approach shot, he needs to be able to make up his mind what tier level on the green he's going to land it on, which is great for McIlroy, Mickelson, DeChambeau, and all of them. Your average club player is lucky to hit the feckin' green, let alone land it on whichever tier he needs. So for they to be standing from 180 yards out with a feckin' 5-iron in their hand, trying to figure out which tier they need to land it on the green. I got down to 14 handicap, and all I ever wanted to do was get my approach shot on the green and worry about the putting after that. I got a close bonus, but I didn't care what tier the ball landed on because I couldn't be sure I was going to get my approach shot there. And I think that's the hold up. They see the pros. I'll tell you, Chris. No, I won't name the guy because he certainly knows him. I played in the captain's prize in Shannon one year, and I played with this guy. He was 6 or 7 handicap, lovely golfer, right? We played the 16th in Shannon, which is a par 4. He hit a lovely drive. He was about 120 yards off the green, right? Watching professional golfers, what does he do? He stands his bag up, walks up to the feckin' green that he's been playing twice a week for the last 20 years. He walks up to it, has a look around, and comes back. And I sat there and I said, Jim, what the fuck are you doing? I have to know where to land my ball on the green. I haven't
I
forgotten.
play a lot of
They,
golf with an old pal of
they
mine. We've been
haven't.
pals for 35 years.
Anyway,
He can't hit us from the same spot on the face.
I don't know. And I think what Chris says is very true. I think
yeah,
the biggest problem with slow play is that when your club golfer sees slow play and sees how the pros are acting, like
Absolutely.
they copy them. And then it just filters all the way up and the word goes out. How long does a round of golf take? How long did your golf take up in Shannon? They were out on the course for 4.25 hours. So everybody thinks that's normal. It's not normal. When you look at the last round of the Masters, I think it was 2 years ago, they only had two players going out in the first set. There was however many they had. The first guys out in the course went out in a two ball, and they came in under 3 hours. Now, if they were in the middle of a pack, they probably would have taken the same 4 hours as everybody else. There is something decidedly wrong when a young man who plays the game, who doesn't wind up in the water or a bunker or in the munchies like me, when a good golfer has to take 4 hours plus to play a game when he's capable of going out in a two ball and doing it in under three.
Yeah,
Somebody has to crack a
but
whip somewhere.
but
really.
Jimmy, the point I'm making is that it's just, it's the. I mean, I've said this before. When you're looking at golf and you say, um, and there seems to be a lot of this happening now where the players are looking for relief for any reason whatsoever, and then they go call a rules official. Now, there seems to be loads of rules officials, but it takes an eternity for them to get to where they are, right? Now they're all on buggies. Now I always thought, especially when the Ryder Cup is on, that there is a rules official with that group, with that four ball or with that match. But
yeah.
it doesn't seem to be the case on tour. Now whether there's a rules official designated to every hole, I don't know. But it seems to take maybe 5-10 minutes to get these rules officials out to where the problem is. And sometimes they're called for spurious reasons, which slows it up. I mean, there seems to be a new phase in golf. He's taking advantage of the rules. It's a way of saying he's not cheating, but there's such a thin line between it that he's actually looking to get an advantage due to what the rules are. But my biggest problem is the time it takes for these guys to get out there. And for a multi-million pound dollar sport like golf, they should be employing these rules officials, whether they need 18 rules officials per day, one for each hole, or one for every grouping, and go out twice a day because they're on
Yeah.
buggies. I just feel that that's contributing to the slow play because a player is looking to get whatever relief they can and will call a rules official, which slows everything down.
Our views
There
will
is
be
one. Sorry, Pat. There is one stupid rule that, as far as I know, goes on. Certainly certainly in the amateur competitions like the Jimmy Bruin, where there is a rules official, there's a GUI rep going around the place. One rule that they could very easily bring in for those competitions is that if your playing partners agree with an interpretation of the rule, that applies even if it's wrong. That's going to speed things up hugely. Most people who are playing in this, let's call a spade, they know the bloody rules.
Of course
They
they do.
just want to make sure that they don't touch a leaf in their backswing and cost them two shots. It would go far better if they all said, look, do I have relief here? Hang on a second. That's a plum in a bunker in California. Plums aren't natural in California, so you get relief from the plum. If it was an apple, you wouldn't, because apples are. The word in Iran to play golf knows that rule. And they still call a fucking rules official to actually determine it. And he's standing there, the guy with the problem is standing there alongside 4 or 5 people who know what the rule is. His own caddy, his two playing partners, and their caddies. Between the 5 of them, they can tell him what the actual ruling is.
Jimmy, the latest one was the embedded ball after a bounce. Do you remember that one that happened recently where the ball came from a tee shot?
Yeah.
It bounced bounced again, and the player tried to claim relief that the bounced ball was embedded.
Yeah.
Now, unless they're playing in quicksand.
I saw that. But Derwynne, before we leave golf for a few minutes, Derwynne, one thing that annoys me, I was watching the PGA, was a chap, and many of them did on the green, they'd roll their ball up to with 8 inches of the hole and they'd mark it.
Yeah.
I think that's shocking. They should come up and
Yeah.
put it in the hole and go away.
But Pat, now, in fairness, Pat, I would have to say to you now, if you played golf in Shannon or Dromoland or any of the local parkland courses around here, your greens, a 12, 18-inch putt, you should be able to take. But if you see the greens in these championship courses, it's like playing on the side of a fucking mountain, and it's not a case of just tapping it in. You could have a 4 or 5-inch break with a 12-inch putt.
Yeah, I don't mind that.
I have no problem with that.
No,
Well, I do have a problem, actually, funny enough.
You just have one problem, is it, Jimmy? Is it?
And
Okay.
It's a problem with the Yanks, and it concerns Seti. And if you can remember, Seti was playing in one of the Ryder Cup match plays, and the Yank took his putt and he put it to within 2 inches. Now, the world of their ant gives that to their opponents. Seti Ballesteros made him mark it, right? And Ballesteros after was asked, why did you make him mark it? Why? And Ballesteros said, I was going to give him the putt, but I wanted his marker near the hole to help me line up my putt, which is perfectly natural and perfectly acceptable. But my problem is the Yanks went fucking ballistic. He's not unsporting. How can he do that? This is a gentleman. For God's sake, this is the crowd who were screaming at the Europeans at the famous War on the Shore in Kiowa Island, where they were virtually booing the opponents, and they complained because Sevi wanted his opponent's ball marker left on the green. For God's sake,
there is likely a good.
Lunatic.
It's very likely a good idea that Sevi did want to use it as a line,
Oh,
as
he
a
did,
marker
he did,
to line up on. But there would have also been a massive amount of tongue-in-cheek, as in asking the guy to bend down and mark that for me, please.
Oh God, yeah.
Because he loved annoying them. I mean, when he first went out to the States, they used to call him on TV Steve.
Yeah.
That was they literally called him Steve, and it was like, my name's Sevi. It's like, it's not that difficult, is it? And there was a lot of things that went on. I mean, I remember talking to Monty after one of the, I think it was, it could have been Chicago or Boston, might have been Oak Hill, where, one of the Ryder Cups, where he was basically, his father left the golf course because he was just so annoyed with the comments from the tee shots and walking down the fairway about his son. He actually left the golf course.
Yeah.
I think his options was, I'm either going to knock the guy out or I can't cope with this, I need to leave. Because they are so...
partisan.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to Ryder Cups and you kind of go, well, yeah, I wouldn't say we cheer when it goes in the bunker or in the lake or whatever, but you don't get the personal insults being thrown across the fence, you know?
I think you're right. I mean, I always prefer the Ryder Cup when it's in Europe than when it is in the States, because I think, and I know it's, if you look at the Phoenix Open and they have that stadium court holder on the 16th, while it's good theatre, I have to say there was one instant there where players were doling out cans of beer to the fans, like giving kids candy, and I just think all you're doing is fueling the fire here, because it's just, I mean, it's raucous. I mean, I don't know, I can understand a little bit of, boisterous and partisanship or whatever, but when it's raucous and when it can, and you know yourself, when fellas are out drinking, and these are all day events, like starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it's fellas that take advantage of drinking at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning, and by lunchtime they're on their last knockings. And when it comes to the latter stages of a tournament, And when you hear that level of abuse going out, it's just not, sometimes you feel like flinging that 9 iron at the direction of where that came from and thinking to hell with the consequences because I can't take much more of this. And it has happened recently, a couple of years ago, where McIlroy pointed at a fella, he pointed his club and says, get him out, and was got out because of the level of abuse.
I remember saying to Monty once, playing a club practice round with him, for the next Ryder Cup, why don't you employ a couple of hundred Millwall fans to get in amongst it?
Well, that would solve your problem.
Welcome to the Lions Den. Yeah.
That would solve your problem. I tell you what.
Well, if you find yourself out putting and you're missing a few putts because you think you're misreading it, go to the practice putting green, find a putt that's got a slight break to it. I always call this the gate. Put 2 tee pegs either side of the line that you imagine the ball needs to travel on. And what you're going to do then is putt through the gate. It's a good indicator whether you've read it right or wrong. So let's go ahead and just have a little demonstration of it now. Well, as you can see, I've rolled it through the gate and it's gone in. Now, while you're out here practicing and you're using the tee peg idea for the gate, something that's really good and very handy to do is to use 2 tee pegs like this, and this will also help you demonstrate not only are you getting it on the right line, but are you able to swing the putter back and through in a straight line. So we've got just enough room to get the putter head through the 2 tee pegs, and there we'll putt. And again, I've got enough room and I've made the magic gate work as well. So now I know that I'm reading the greens pretty good, and that should give you a lot of confidence to go forward out onto the golf course and make a lot of putts.
Bad shows.
A couple of hundred Millwall fans would sort anything out.
Yep.
Yeah, the final whistle is the program on theirmedia.tv. Now we can't leave it go, Derwynne and lads, without we have a few minutes yet. Chelsea won the Champions League over the weekend, and of course that was their second Champions League cup. They're had the same amount now as Notts Forest. Good company. You remember Notts Forest winning? Man United have 3 of them, and of course Liverpool have 6 of them. Which is
what's your point? What's your point like? What's your point?
My point is this:
that you can count.
I didn't watch the match.
You can use 2 hands to
you know what I mean? But I got a chance to see a lot of it in the highlights, and I thought, I know I'm after reading all the accounts of it since, so people will say I'm making this up or I'm copying it, but I thought Kante was just the Champions League player of the whole thing Saturday night. He orchestrated, and Thomas Tuchel he got everything right for Chelsea. That's my reading, Derwynne. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, Chelsea outplayed them in the middle, didn't they, really?
Yeah.
I mean, Conte just ran that, didn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, he just doesn't stop running, does he?
Yeah.
But he's really quiet about it as well, isn't he? He's not like...
he's very unassuming player.
It's not flash, is it? I mean, he's just a workhorse, isn't he?
He's a professional.
Do you know what he's a combination of Roy Keane and Clarence Seedorf, where he just goes box to box and just keeps on going, but has the technical ability of knowing when to do the right thing at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he reminds me. In some ways, he reminds me of Scholes.
Do you think so, Scholes?
Yeah,
Paul Scholes.
Because Scholes was box to box and always seemed to be in the right place at the right time, didn't he?
He wasn't as much of a defensive midfielder.
But I thought, you know who had a great game? Do you know how, I mean, I thought the second half was, the second half was fascinating, okay, because the goal that Chelsea got, which I have to say was an outstanding pass from Mason Mount for the goal. I thought the second half was a fascinating watch to see how, everyone thought that Man City were a better team than what Chelsea would have put out, but it just shows you that the sum of the parts, adds up. And I just got the impression that as Piliqueta at the defense was unbelievable. The amount of blocks that he got, to stop potential crosses and goals. was fantastic. And I think they rode their luck as well, Chelsea, because I think that I'm going to choose my words carefully, but the little bit of the assault on Kevin De Bruyne had a big bearing on that game. I think that really was a sending off offence, and I'm still surprised to today how that was not seen by VAR at the time.
Well, I don't know whether you could call it an assault at all, you know. I think it was an unfortunate collision.
Oh, it was poor. It was poor.
You know?
The hand was raised to his face like that. It was a poor challenge.
Those
Yeah.
kind of obstructions happen all the time now, don't they? They're like
True.
body checks in
Yeah.
ice hockey, aren't they?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
this is an ice hockey, and the man didn't have a stick to protect himself.
Yeah.
You know, that's
Yeah,
my
but
opinion. I just
equally,
felt it looked
Chris,
poor. It looked poor.
Equally, while he was lucky, while he was unlucky, he didn't have a stick to protect himself. He was lucky that his opponent didn't have a stick to hit him with.
True.
So that cuts both ways. No, I think any cup final, pretty well, virtually every cup final that I've ever seen, always comes down to a team that can stop the other team from playing and do a bit of playing on their own. And I would say if Guardiola could go back in time, no matter how talented Riyad Mahrez, I would say Guardiola would happily change his visit to Leicester to take Kante instead
Yeah.
of taking Mahrez,
Yeah.
because a much better boy. And he was a song. They got Kante for half nothing, relatively speaking, half nothing. It was a typical cup final, though. I didn't see anything in it other than a tactical masterclass from Tuchel. And what nobody in England is saying, and I'm sorry to be saying this to you, Derwynne, I know you're not really an Englishman, but it must really piss off the denizens of the King's Road to think that that team, bar two players, was built by Frank Lampard and they were going nowhere with Lampard running them, which is an awful shame. Lovely player, nice guy, but actually, all the players bar one. Didn't he buy Ziyech as well? Isn't Havertz the only? Oh no, he
Yeah,
didn't buy.
but see,
He didn't buy Ziyech.
yeah, but Jimmy, the
But he
problem.
bought all the rest of them.
But this is the
Bought
problem
Mason
about.
Mount through.
But this is the problem about management. It's extremely difficult for a manager to step in after playing football at a high level without an apprenticeship. Okay, and one season in Derby doesn't make a summer. You have to do an approach like what Ronan O'Gara is doing in rugby, going and learning the game in different countries with different clubs.
Yes.
Because I mean, John Barnes did the same when he went to Celtic. Other managers have tried it. It does. Some players are good coaches, and some players just can't coach, and that goes in all other sports. And I just feel that
there is. I agree with you, Chris. There is only one player, in my experience, to my knowledge, who ever went from being a good player at the same club, and I think
that was Dalglish.
part of Lampard. Dalglish, yeah.
Dalglish was the only one, right?
The only one, yeah.
But that he was a special talent anyway. But the point I'm making, like all sports, okay, you do need to do your apprenticeship. You
Yes,
do need.
yeah,
You cannot go to having maybe a 3/4 season with Derby and going to run Chelsea, which Chelsea at times can be a bit of a bit like FC Hollywood. They say about Bayern Munich. I mean, it's a lot happens outside the club than inside the club, and what Lampard. No, it's very difficult to turn away 9-10 million a year. But the point was that he's a young man. He's probably burnt and chastised by the experience. What he should have done was go and spend a couple of years away at Derby, right? And then move up the ladder and then go to Chelsea when he's in his mid-40s or whatever. He's just not experienced at that level. Tuchel has been on the block. I mean, Tuchel has been with Borussia Dortmund. He's been with Paris Saint-Germain. He's now with Chelsea. This guy is an experienced coach for about maybe 15, 20 years experience. Because the Germans, and this is the thing, lads, about it, the Germans will always have good coaches. You look at the way they are now. The Germans have now got Hansi Flick as their national manager, right? And all he's known for is 18 months at Bayern Munich. Nobody knows what he's done before. He was assistant manager with Germany for like 12 years. The guy's in his mid-50s. He's now their manager. And everyone's going, Hansi who? But that's where he's been in the last 18 months. This guy has done his apprenticeship. That's what they do. It's very, very difficult for a guy who's finished his playing career, goes in for a one-season stint at a championship club, and then he's then. I always hate it in soccer when they come out and says we need a name, we need a big name. You don't need a big name. You need a fucking coach that can manage and can have tactics. And look, Tuchel is not a name. He's a coach. He's not a charismatic figure, but he does the bloody job for you.
And again, Chris, sorry to be doing this to you twice. Don't
worry, you get used to it, Derwynne, after 20 years.
I agree 100% with what you're saying, but there is one exception, and he had handed to him, and that's Guardiola. He ended his playing career, got his coaching licenses, and took over Barcelona. So, now having said that, Chris, you could manage that Barcelona side to 5 or 6.
I will take that as a compliment, okay?
You shouldn't, but
I know.
I'll let you. But I mean, you're 100% right.
It's a lot of money.
What?
Lads have exchanged some brown envelopes before the program, so that's all right too. But Derwynne, you're living in London.
They were fucking empty. Go on.
I'll ask you a question. You're living in London. Isn't it about time that Tottenham Hotspur, if they're a serious professional soccer club, to appoint a good coach and buy a few decent players? Oh, they're the perennial bridesmaid, aren't they?
I think you'd probably stand there and say Tottenham they've certainly got probably the best ground in the Premiership. I think if you said, the pulling power that they could have in Tottenham, especially now that Arsenal's sort of on the slide, you'd like to think Tottenham would be up there. But, I just find it, I'm not sure if Daniel Levy's the right guy to go out there and buy a team, or whether he just wants to, have the nicest stadium and get it to take American football away from Wembley and get it into Tottenham, because it's actually a better ground for NFL than it is for football. I think he's just interested in what that ground does. It's
a monument, isn't it? It's a monument to the area.
Yeah.
But maybe the owner might get an NFL franchise, and that might make a few extra bob instead of a soccer team that's forever failing.
Well, seeing as Harry Kane has this ambition of playing NFL, why not transfer him to the New England Patriots? Bring them over from Boston, and there you have your team. So Harry can play football on Saturdays and play NFL on Sundays.
Hold on a second. If he wants to play NFL, why don't you let him sign for Monaghan? They're going to have their work cut out for them playing against Galway. That's the National Football League.
Jesus, will you
stop? Play that. Listen, Tottenham, Tottenham are in trouble when a couple of hours after they sacked Pochettino, they're talking about hiring him back.
That's ridiculous.
They haven't a clue. Levy hasn't a clue.
That says
be far better off to sell the stadium for flats and give the money to Guardiola.
That's what Arsenal did. That's what Arsenal did.
They did, yeah.
They sold their stadium for flats. Will you stop?
They did. Tottenham will never do that. That's copying Arsenal.
But hang on, Jimmy. I mean, that just tells you about how football has sunken to an unbelievable depth. When a guy who was turfed out of his era after getting them to a Champions League final, right?
Yep.
And then he's now thinking, I might go back here, right? But what's he going to go back to? Because if Kane, I don't think Kane will go, because there's no club in England or the world that can afford that type of. There's one. I don't know.
There's one. Yeah,
there's one. There's one.
Pochettino is managing them.
He won't go to Paris.
Why?
Kane will stay in London.
Don't say it's the language. He can only barely speak English.
No, he'll go. That's unfair. That's unfair. If he's going to go anywhere, he's going to go to Manchester City. That's the only club that can afford him. I can't see him going anywhere else.
They wouldn't understand what he's saying anyway. But Derwynne, there's another London club in the Premiership now after coming up, isn't there? Brentford. After a few years,
yeah.
After 2 years of trying, I remember I worked in London in the 70s briefly. I remember going up to their pitch. Well, that was in the 1970s when soccer was a real sport, in a real game. Up to Loftus Road every second Saturday to see Terry Mancini, Frank McClintock, and all those headers as well. It was great
Stan
time.
Bowles. Stan Bowles.
Stan Bowles, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
Jerry
What a-
Francis at Rangers.
yeah.
that's right. Yeah. Jerry Francis, him with the
Oh,
mullet
Yeah.
and the pigeons.
Yeah.
He used to race pigeons.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
but,
did, didn't he?
but he
raised
usually
pigeons.
won though.
What?
He usually
Stan Bowles-
won.
Stan Bowles back to pigeons.
I'll tell you a funny story about Stan Bowles.
Stan Bowles
So
back to pigeons.
Stan Bowles' wife was a dinner lady at my school.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Go away. Go away.
Yeah. She was a dinner lady at Neasden High.
Wow.
Oh, because he was a fabulous soccer player, Stan Bowles. Just love
Oh,
watching.
I'll tell you what, how
Oh,
did he
yeah.
not play more for England?
Oh, sure, God, you could name.
Played for the wrong club.
You look at the present English team; they're shocking, and the manager is a dope.
Do you
Yeah,
that's hang on a second now. That,
man.
no, hang on a second now.
No,
Do you know what? Right? I will be on this radio show now on the 12th of July. There's a good nice date for you now, okay? The 12th of July, right? And there'll be orange all over your face, right? Why? Because I guarantee you hang on, look at it analytically, right?
Look at what?
You just after watching the game last Saturday, where probably the better team on statistically and paper lost. Are you telling me with all seriousness that England don't have a chance in this European Championship? They've practically got every match in Wembley, bar
Yeah,
one.
it's only bar one,
And
yeah.
they have the easiest group they could possibly.
They've
have
got
done. They're
Scotland.
guaranteed to get out of the
And if you
group.
think the English manager's a joke, right?
Listen,
And-
I'm a boy from Wembley, so I'll be going bananas for three lions on my chest.
I'm telling you, England have got a great chance. And the thing about the fact is this: if they win their group, right, they were supposed to come to Dublin for the last 16 match, which would have been a potential match against Germany. Now they don't have to worry about coming to Dublin, right? They can probably play them wherever. I think I'm not so sure where it is, but there's but if they get through to the final by winning their group, they play England. If they play every one bar one match in Wembley. Now, are you telling? So they're practically the home nation.
You can be sure of one thing: England will probably lose to a team that they're expected to win 10-0 against. They always do that in a competition.
Scotland won't win.
The toughest game they've got is Croatia.
Yeah, Croatia's the hardest match.
And even the Czech Republic are no walkovers either.
Croatia had a player on their team, Luka Modric.
Yeah.
England have no comparable player to him, in my opinion. None.
Don't need one.
But name one that they have like that.
But they don't need a comparable player. They just need 11 players that can beat Croatia.
Yeah.
I think England's biggest problem, I think, is the fact that they have probably the best set of full-backs anywhere.
Yeah.
And they're they're in serious danger of actually playing the wrong set of full-backs and constantly changing them.
Yeah.
Because you've got four of the best six right fulls.
I'll tell you this. I will give England credit here, right?
Hang on. Get into any international team. Harry Maguire.
That donkey.
Hang on a second. Hang on. We played Mick McCarthy for years. Come on. Right?
Mick McCarthy, but you knew Mick McCarthy. Nobody ever said that Mick McCarthy was as good as Franz Beckenbauer.
Okay.
They're saying that Donkey Maguire is as good as Virgil van Dijk.
Let me tell you this. Harry Maguire wouldn't lace.
Mick McCarthy had the best strategy ever. Mick McCarthy was told, you're going to be up against Gary Lineker, the fastest striker in the world, and McCarthy said, how fast can he limp? So you were never in any doubt about what McCarthy's tactics and strategy was.
Jimmy, let me just say about the English right now. Okay, there's one thing that will look, international football is not as high on the agenda with a lot of players than it used to be. Okay, so a lot of the countries are not playing probably their full their best teams. When you
Yeah.
consider that a lot of players are retiring at 29, 30, 31 or whatever, when they could have kept on going. England take international football extremely serious. They've always, even friendly matches are more like in competitive games than what a lot of other countries do. The only thing that could be their downfall is, as always, it could be the hype from the media. Now I was in Germany on holidays at the last World Cup, and the impression I got was that the media bought into the we don't have much of a chance, let's play it down. If the English media play it down and where they think we have a chance, however, we're not going to bring it home, lads, then they will have a chance of going far. But once the hype gets to them, then their level of expectation is just going to rocket, and that's their downfall. But they are a functional team. There isn't that many changes from the World Cup. Okay, everyone said they were lucky with the draw that they got, but you can only beat what's in front of you. And in fairness, Croatia were a stunning team 2-3 years ago. Let's be fair. But I think England's draw that they have got this year, I think they are a serious contenders. That's just my opinion.
I think if if the manager, if he has the courage of his convictions, in my opinion, the best English team he could pick is the youngest possible team, because the older players have their careers all lined up for them. They're on their huge salary, and there's nothing in it for them to take it seriously. Mason Mount wants to be on the world stage. Alexander Arnold wants to be on the world stage. Luke Shaw probably doesn't, because he's on good money and he's too old. If you start playing the good young players who will have a hunger and the talent, you are right, Chris. I hate to say it, but the talent is there if you play the young players.
Jimmy, can I ask you a question?
You can.
Was Raheem Sterling playing Saturday night in the Champions League final?
He was on the field.
He was on the field, yeah.
He's one of the English strikers, I believe, is he?
And who took him out of the game? Another of England's brilliant right full-backs. They've got 4 brilliant right full-backs.
You see,
it's incredible.
But if you want to talk about Raheem Sterling has been messed about for the last few weeks by being dropped and being put. I mean, he hasn't been given the best, set of cards from Pep for the last 2 or 3 months. Yeah. So there's probably been a dip in confidence and a dip in form in that as well. The problems Manchester City had on Saturday night is not with Raheem Sterling. It was further back.
Now, before we
holding midfielder.
Before we wrap up tonight, I have to mention, whilst we were on air, and we're recording this on Monday the 31st of May, and it'll be going up on our platforms later on this edition of The Final Whistle with our very special guest, Derwynne Honan. And it was great having you, Derwynne. But before we leave, there was news breaking before we came on air. I was looking it up a bit myself, and Mary were watching it, is that Osaka has withdrawn from the French Open. And it's a pity, really. She's withdrawn from the French Open after winning her first round match, but so be it. Also, Roger Federer won today in 3 straight sets. But I suppose, and as we're on air, what's her name is playing now tonight, which is Serena Williams. But anyone would be interested in Roland Garros, I suppose Rafael Nadal would be the man to beat, as he is for the last 13 years, or 13 Grand Slams in Roland Garros. Is there anyone to beat him? Because Dominic Thiem was dumped out in the first round.
To be honest with you, Pat, I've mentioned this before on this show about the lack of quality in tennis with the old guard, the 1, 2, 3, okay, that are into the mid-30s now. And then you see Dominic Thiem, who is number 4 in the world, getting beaten in 5 sets. Now, anybody can lose a Grand Slam, but it just seems that, this guy who he lost to is like an out-and-out qualifier, who may not get even past the second round. We don't know. But that's just the dirt of men's talents at the moment. However, the news that came out tonight about Naomi Osaka, it's got murky, because I think what happened is that she didn't state her case very well. Now, no one's asking for her to explain her mental state on air to everyone. But I think she handled it herself poorly, and she was badly advised, because all she had to do was actually attend the post-match conferences when she wins. If she loses once, which is all you can lose at a tennis event, she can just walk away from that and not go to the conference and then be only fined once. But by doing what she did meant that if she was going to play 7 times and win, she was going to be fined 7 times by not going to a press conference. So her strategy was wrong in the beginning. She should have just said, I'm going to go to all the winning conferences, and then when I lose, just go home. Simple as that. They can only fine me once. So she was poorly advised to start with. Hang on. She was poorly advised to start with. However, the Grand Slam officials and the French Open organisers came out extremely poorly with their statement yesterday and today.
Over the top.
And I think that was tantamount to bullying.
Way over the top, yeah.
I think that what they did led to her withdrawal.
She never had a problem paying the fines, but this comment that we won't settle for fining you for not showing up was, as you say, Chris, bullying. Yeah. I think she got wickedly bad advice. Yeah. If she had a decent PRO who would go to the press, give me a list of the questions you're going to ask her, and write down the answers and say, trot those out like a parrot and walk away. You can be drunk, you can be high as a kite, there's no pressure on you. These are the answers you have to give. And if she was told that it's going to be as simple as that, it might have been different. But the bullying, just because you've got millions and you can afford to pay fines, is a dreadful attitude. Absolutely dreadful. It's a shame she's gone. Of course, let's not forget she's a foreigner. She probably doesn't have the best English in the world either. So.
Do you follow the tennis much, Derwynne?
No, not really.
Yeah.
Tennis isn't big in Wembley as a boy, I tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the wrong side of the city, of course. Yeah,
definitely. There was a completely diagonal opposite.
We'll bring this edition, lads. It's been an absolute blast.
Are we not even going to get Derwynne's input into the GAA and hurling over the weekend and his expert knowledge? You know what I mean? He could teach us a couple of things. We'll send him a few videos for next time he's on, and he can.
Actually,
that's
Derwynne, in fairness, Derwynne, we actually brought you on at the right weekend because there was only one hurling match on for you to talk about. So that was all you had to read about. Kilkenny Wexford. That was all.
Derwynne, what I would advise you to do, Derwynne, is have a look at the Jason Statham video in one of the films he did where he beats the crap out of a guy with hurling. That'll show you what it's like, really.
Yeah. So from this edition, lads, it's been an absolute blast on the programme, and tell all your friends about us. This is the final whistle. We'll be coming to you every Monday night, and we have an email which is info@lairmedia.tv for all your pithy comments and whatever you want to say about us. So from Chris Price, Jimmy O'Brien, and myself, and our special guest, Derwynne Honan over there in Wembley. Derwynne, it's been a blast. It's been a joy having you, and we hope to check in again with you in the near future. So from this edition of The Final Whistle, for myself, Pat, until we meet again, good evening and good luck.
Well, if you found yourself struggling for a little bit of distance off the tee lately, here's a little trick for you that might help. It's also going to prove one of the myths of golf a little bit wrong for you. When you set up to the ball with the driver, once you've got yourself settled into that setup position, allow your head to turn a little bit on the backswing. I sometimes call it a swivel. So you feel as though your head is swiveling a little bit around you to the right. Jack Nicklaus did this in all the years he played golf. He used to preset his head slightly to the right and turn. That allowed his shoulders to make a bigger turn and his shoulders to roll underneath his chin. That transferred to a lot of clubhead speed, and suddenly he found the ball being driven a lot further. So when you're out playing next time, try and feel as though you turn your head slightly, still focusing on the golf ball, and that way you might just surprise the golfing friends and outdrive them.